So what happens when a really ancient institution has to face a totally modern crisis? Well, back in 1891, with the Industrial Revolution just tearing through society, Pope Leo XIII put out a document that honestly shook the world at the time. It was called Rerum Novarum, and it was a pretty radical answer to all the economic chaos. And believe it or not, we're still feeling its effects today. Just listen to the language here. I mean, this is not some dry academic paper, right? It's a fiery condemnation of a system that, in the Pope's own words, was basically a new kind of slavery. You can just feel how high the stakes were.
So, what on earth was going on that needed such a powerful response? Well, the title, Rerum Novarum, it literally means of new things. And let me tell you, the world of the late 19th century was full of brand new and pretty scary things. Let's set the stage a bit.
Okay, so the Industrial Revolution is in full swing. Cities are just exploding. New factories are popping up everywhere, and people are pouring in from the countryside. But for most of them, the dream was a nightmare. We're talking about grueling, dangerous work for wages that could barely keep you alive and living conditions that were just squalid and awful.
So all this chaos, this massive clash between incredible new wealth on one side and just widespread terrible poverty on the other, it all got a name. It was called the social question. The big question was, how is society supposed to handle this? And, well, two very extreme answers were starting to get really popular.
On one side, you had this idea of unfettered capitalism, basically a total hands-off approach. The government should stay out of it, let the market do its thing, and, well, workers were just left to the mercy of their employers. On the other extreme, you had revolutionary socialism, which said, nope, the whole system is broken, we need class warfare, we need to get rid of all private property, and the state should just take over everything. Honestly, to a lot of people, both of those options looked like a total disaster.
And right into the middle of this firestorm steps the Pope. At a time when a lot of people thought the church was becoming irrelevant, Pope Leo XIII decides to weigh in, and he offers a response that basically challenged both sides of the fight.
Now, what's so interesting here is why he did it. He looked out and saw a world where workers were being treated like they were disposable, and these big new ideas, capitalism and socialism, weren't offering any real moral answers. He knew the church had to speak up, not just to stay relevant, but to actually defend the dignity of people who were being crushed.
And he did that by proposing something really radical, a third way. See, Rerum Novarum wasn't about trying to tweak capitalism a little or make socialism a bit nicer. It was about forging a completely different path based on a whole different set of rules.
Okay, so what did this third path actually look like in practice? Let's break it down. Take private property. Socialism said, get rid of it. Capitalism said it's an absolute right. Rerum Novarum said, hold on, it's a natural right, but it has limits. Or the state's role. Instead of total control or no control, Leo argued for limited intervention, specifically to protect the vulnerable. And maybe most important of all, instead of constant class conflict, he said labor and capital should and can cooperate.
All right, let's dive a little deeper into the core principles of this third way. What are the actual building blocks for this new vision of society?
Everything, and I mean everything, in Rerum Novarum is built on this one foundational idea, the dignity of the human person. And look, this wasn't just some fluffy, feel-good idea. For Leo, it was a rock-solid theological truth. Because every single person is made in the image of God. They have a sacred worth that can't be taken away. That means a worker can never, ever be just a cog in a machine. The whole point of an economy is to serve people, not the other way around.
So building right on top of that, the Encyclical makes this really strong case for private property, which was a direct shot at socialism. The thinking is, owning something gives a person and their family a measure of freedom, of autonomy. It gives you a stake in your community and the ability to provide for your own. It's seen as a natural right. But, and this is a huge but, that right is not absolute. It's not a free-for-all. As Pope John Paul II would say later, that right comes with what he called a social mortgage. Basically, owning property comes with a responsibility to the common good. You can't just hoard your wealth while your neighbor is starving. This was a massive challenge to the whole capitalist ethos of the time.
And that leads us to one of the most famous ideas to come out of this document, the just wage. So what is a just wage? Well, it's not just the bare minimum you need to not starve. It's a wage that's enough for a worker to support their whole family with dignity, to live a decent human life, and even, get this, to save a little bit and maybe acquire some property of their own.
So what about the government, and what about other groups? Well, Rerum Novarum charts a middle path. The state absolutely has a duty to step in and protect the poor from things like insane work hours or unsafe conditions. But it shouldn't be so powerful that it absorbs the individual or the family. And then, crucially, it says workers have a natural right to form their own associations to protect their interests. You know what we call those today? Unions. This was a massive, massive endorsement of the labor movement when it needed it most.
Okay, so that was 1891. It's a long time ago. So why are we still talking about a document that's over 130 years old? Well, because its publication wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of something much, much bigger. Here's the thing. Rerum Novarum wasn't a one-and-done deal. It literally kicked off a whole new tradition. It's seen as the foundational document of what we now call modern Catholic social teaching, this huge body of thought that tries to apply timeless principles to the social and economic problems of the modern world.
And you can literally trace this tradition through the decades. On the big anniversaries of Rerum Novarum, popes would release their own landmark documents. Each one took those original principles and applied them to the new things of their day, from the Great Depression to globalization, and all the way up to Pope Francis and the environmental crisis.
And that's why these core ideas, human dignity, the common good, solidarity, a just wage, they are still so incredibly relevant. They give us a moral lens to look at today's biggest debates, whether we're talking about the rights of gig economy workers, the ethics of AI, or massive corporate profits.
You know, the framework is so timeless that people are already using it to think about the next big revolution, artificial intelligence. This quote here imagines a future pope calling AI the new social question. It's a perfect example of how Leo's whole approach of facing the new things head-on gives us a playbook for today.
So that leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? Our world is being completely reshaped by technology and new ways of working, just like it was in 1891. So if we take those principles we've been talking about, dignity over profit, a just wage, protecting the vulnerable, what would a Rerum Novarum for our time even have to say? What are the new things right now that demand our attention?